Father, we thank you once more for your great love towards us. We thank you that the plan is going forward. And although there's only going to be a few, you've called us. Help us to know that we're part of that few. Help us also to reach out for those who still want to know, that we may give them the good news because we're good news to them. Bless us now as we continue to learn, as we hear your voice. May we catch new visions of who you are and what you want us to become. We ask for your guidance now in Jesus' precious name. Amen. Next time we start the Reformation. So, if you have anybody who doesn't know about the Reformation, maybe you could invite them. It's not going to be Seventh-day Adventist talk in the beginning. We want to know some history. It's something anybody can find if they dig, if they know where to dig. That's what we want to do. We want to get the background so we understand who we are in relation to the Reformation. All right, this time, many years ago, I sat down one night and started typing. That was before computers. I had an electric typewriter that had a word processor system in it, even though there were no such thing as computers yet. And I sat down and started typing. And what came out, I don't even know how many pages, because I didn't do it that way. But there's about 400 quotations here. It's all spirit prophecy. And they just kept coming. They just kept coming. So I just kept typing. And what this is the plan of salvation in the spirit of prophecy writings according to the sanctuary service. Now, how can you have it according to the sanctuary service? Well, there are many quotations in the spirit of prophecy, and I began noticing years and years ago that people were using them, and they didn't make sense the way they were using them. And I tried to figure out, well, what's the problem? It's spirit of prophecy. They're trying to get something spiritual out of it, and yet it doesn't make sense the way they're using them. And I found out one of the causes. They were using pre-conversion statements and applying them to Christians. And they were applying most holy place statements in the holy place. And they were mixing the statements all up. They fit in certain places because they're teaching particular truths. So that's what I did. When I looked at what had happened and I followed the sequence, they lined up. This section is all pre-conversion statements. This section is all conversion statements. This section is all how a Christian lives statements. And then the last section was on the judgment, the basis of it, and how a person is sealed. And that's how they all lined up. I haven't seen this for many years. This is one of the original copies. It's got little marks I put down here to change the pages and all that. But this was handed to me about 2 weeks ago. That's the first time I've seen it in 30 years. So I thought, well, there's a reason why I have this again. And the reason is it's in my computer now. I've done it again, only reading from here, and it's in the computer. So I can use it now. And someday if there's a reason to print it up, it's in the computer. So it hasn't been lost. But the Lord will do all kinds of interesting things with us if we're just willing to let Him do them. I'm not going to read from this. This will take us about 4 months. But I'm going to read one statement for today. That one statement led me to think a few other things. It led me to volume 5 of the Testimonies. And this morning as I was reading in volume 5, I found what I was looking for. We're going to talk about that just a little bit. Here's the statement, volume 5 of the Testimonies, page 160. This is in the holy place section. So this is the way Christians live. Okay? This is not how you become a Christian. It's how Christians live. It is your work to study and to imitate the pattern. Was Christ self-denying? Yes. So must you be. Okay? Was he meek and lowly? Yes. So must you be. Was he zealous in the work of saving souls? So must you be. Did he labor to promote the glory of his Father? So must you. Did he often seek help from God? So must you. Was Christ patient? So will you be patient. As Christ forgave his enemies, so you will forgive. End of quote. That's how a Christian lives. And so we need to check up on ourselves every now and then. Am I holding up the standard or am I sliding? See? Because we never stay the same. That's not possible. You're either growing or you're going down. That's true for all of us. Thank you. The Beatitudes. Yeah, there it is. Actually, we'll see this every place in the life of Christ. Yep. That gives me an opportunity to say something. Why did Jesus come here? I know the first answer everybody gives is, well, to save us. Mm-hmm. Well, okay, he came to save us. Why did he come here? Well, to die. Yeah. But why did he come here?
To give us the way to live.
He came to show us how a person that belongs to God lives. Huh? That's what he came for. Because he could have written all that stuff in the books. As a matter of fact, he did. That's what the Bible is. But the Bible's not enough. Unless you see Jesus and you see how he lives. Now, when God sent his Son, Spirit Prophecy says point blank, God sent his ideal to us. The ideal what? He didn't send the ideal God. He sent the ideal man so we would have something to copy. Now, I hope you don't get tired of me saying this, but I have to say it because there is so much confusion. God couldn't have sent any other kind of a human. Certainly not like me. See? Are you getting this? Yes. Why it is so impossible for what these things people are saying? Jesus was the ideal human being. He came to show me how I can live as a human because he did it. So don't say, yeah, but he was God. No, he lived as a human. He didn't do it as God. He came to show us how a human lives with the Spirit of God in them. So then, if we can get a hold of that, now we go back and look at this again. Was he self-denying?
Yes.
That's God's human. So must you be. That's what it says here. So must you be. So self-denial is not a big sacrifice. Self-denial is a big, horrible thing I have to make myself do. I must just become what a real human is. We get all these wild ideas about, oh, I have to do this and I have to do. No, it's what we do when we're straightened up. Was he zealous in working for souls?
Yes.
Yeah. We're going to look at that some more in this particular chapter. You know, in every church, I don't care which church it is, the leaders have to stand up and plead with the people to come out and learn how to win a soul. And if there's 100 people in that church, they might get 10 people. Why do we have to plead with Seventh-day Adventists to want to win a soul? There's something really wrong with that.
Right.
There's something terribly wrong with that. We're going to see what it is. All right. With that little beginning, and the page is more like that. And I only brought one section. I didn't bring the other three. Because my first thought today was we might read a few of these. But I think maybe we'll stay in volume 5 for now. Right now, you have that book. I'm not going to ask you when's the last time you read it, but now's a good time. Okay. I was talking to a pastor a couple weeks ago. And I read him a couple things from Great Controversy, and it's like he never heard about them before. Yeah, Great Controversy. But you know what? He came back a week later, he says, I'm reading the Great Controversy again. Yeah, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. I've read that book, I don't know how many times, but I'm going to read it again and again. Volume 5 of the Testimonies, page 167. Yeah, page 167. This chapter is entitled Brotherly Love. Brotherly love. I'm going to half read, half paraphrase, half talk through this. I may not give you the rest of the pages. You just work your way through it. There's about 10 pages in this chapter. That's not very long, but it's loaded with material. We'll just pick out a little bit here and there. Jesus said, by this shall all men know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another. Now, isn't that interesting? That is the proof that Jesus is God. If we love each other. Now, if we don't love each other, what's all the talking about doctrines going to do? That's why we're not winning souls today as a people. We are good at giving doctrines. We really are good at that. But that's not going to win people to Jesus Christ unless we have love for each other, and those people are going to know there's love here that I've never seen before. All right, so Jesus said, this is the way men will know you're my disciples. And we are told the more closely we resemble Jesus in character. I have to read this part. The greater will be our love toward those for whom he died.
Yep.
You mean that smelly drunk down there that comes by me every now and then and flashes his broken teeth at me, says hi, and stumbles on? You mean to say the more I'm like Jesus, the more I'm going to love him? Yeah. That's the way it works. If we find we're picking who we want to be around and who we don't want to be around, who we will open up to and who we say, oh, we have some things to learn, see? Didn't Jesus say, even the heathen love the people that love them? Yeah, that person's patting you on the back and saying, oh, you're a great guy. I love him. It's the other ones. What other ones? Well, you might know some other ones. I don't know. The greater will be our love toward those for whom he died. Well, that's everybody, isn't it?
Yep. All of us.
He died for everybody. There's nobody out there I can single out and say, well, not them. Christians. That's holy place people who are living in the holy place. Christians who manifest a spirit of unselfish love are bearing a testimony for Christ that even unbelievers can turn away from and say, that's fake. They can't do that. Jesus won't let it happen. The angels are there to make it stick and work. No matter how high his profession, he whose heart is not imbued with love for God and for his fellow men is not a disciple of Christ. These hard statements are not going to give. That's an absolute. There's no way to bend it. There's no way to turn it to say something else. That's it. It's either this way or that way. There's no melting. You know, I've had people in responsible positions say, you know, you're just too harsh, too plain. And you know, I have only one thing to say to them. Maybe I am. But you know what? I'm quoting pages from God's words. I'm not making anything up, and I'm not even using the hard ones. I've never said anything hard to a person. I've tried to keep it as easy as possible, just to get it moving. Because there are some really difficult statements to look at where she says, if you're doing this, you're going to be lost forever. I've never used one of those on a person. It's hard enough for me to read it for myself.
Right.
Though he should profess great faith. Are there people in our midst, our church, that profess great faith?
Yes.
Well, yeah, they're in church every Sabbath, aren't they?
That has nothing to do with it.
They go to the camp meetings when we have them. It says here in the Spirit of Prophecy, this kind of a person might even be able to work miracles. Yeah. Did you know Judas did miracles? Yeah, Judas did miracles. He might display great liberality. But if he has some other motive than genuine love for what he's doing, we know what Paul said about that. It says this kind of a person might even be so zealous for the cause, for the message, that they would even go through a martyr's death. Now, you would think that's a pretty good test, wouldn't you? But it isn't. Even dying for Jesus is not what God is looking for. Yet destitute of the gold of love, that only comes from God. The gold of love, by God, he would be regarded as a deluded enthusiast or an ambitious hypocrite. You see, God doesn't look at things the way we do. But we need to start getting that more and more. We must understand the way God looks at things. Because it's not the way we have been trained to look at things. Even in the church, okay? Can I say that? Even in the church. There are all kinds of Seventh-day Adventist people who think they're really great Seventh-day Adventists who are so far away from God. How could you ever tell them? Yeah. Charity, love, suffers long. Now, there's an interesting point. You realize, of course, we're moving towards 1 Corinthians 13. Charity. Now, charity is more than external love. Charity has goodness in it. Charity has respect in it. Charity, it's a different kind of love. It's the agape love of God. Charity is a pretty good English word for that. It says in the King James, charity suffers long and is kind and doesn't envy. There's a weak subject right there, that word envy. Paul, according to Ellen White, says, the divine love ruling in the heart exterminates pride and selfishness. Exterminates. Pride and selfishness. Well, I better move along here. We're not going to get through this chapter. Charity vaunts not itself, is not puffed up. See, that's another big one. You know, there are people preaching the message because they get people clapping and applauding for them. I'm really glad that the new president made that as one of his first statements. No applauding, please. Just say amen. No applauding. That puffs up.
Yep, it does.
None of our ministers need to be puffed up. None of our leaders need to be puffed up. Nobody needs to be puffed up. Patience, love, trusting submission. There's a hard one. It's trusting submission. I'm going to go past that for right now. Charity does not behave itself unseemly, seeks not her own, is not easily provoked. Ooh. Not easily provoked? No, I tend to be a pretty calm person, but I have to watch that one myself. Yes.
Me too.
There are certain things that happen certain ways that, no, this is not easily provoked.
Right.
That broke me down the first time I read A Desire of Ages, when Jesus, they were working him over, beating him, cutting him, thank you, pulling the hair out of his face. And then there came the sentence, he could not be provoked. I'm telling you, that floored me the first time I read it, and it still doesn't do much less than that now. He could not be provoked. Well, he was showing me how a human is supposed to live. Every human. The heart in which love rules will not be filled with passion or revenge. By injuries which pride and self-love would deem unbearable. Love is unsuspecting. What?
What does that mean?
Love is unsuspecting. What does that mean?
Yeah.
Well, you just made a stupid statement back there in the back row, and it sounds like you're really against the Seventh-day Adventist Church, but you know what? I didn't hear it. It went by somehow. Because all I can think about you is you're doing the best you can. See? In Desire of Ages, it said Jesus, when he was dealing with those Pharisees, he had to say things that were true to them. They knew they were true. They knew he was saying the absolute truth to them. And when they were hard, he had tears in his voice while he said them. They knew he's not trying to cut us down. That makes it worse, doesn't it? It's really true. And then this statement follows. Jesus did not like to see them put in a hard place. He didn't like to see them all wiped out and didn't know what to do next. I'll get to this. Love is unsuspecting. It will never needlessly expose the faults of others. I'll just say this in passing because it's in here. It doesn't get involved in gossip, spreading the news. Continuing. Love bears all things. Oh, wait a minute. Bears, how many? That's a lot, you know. Bears all things. You mean to say when they holler at me for not sweeping the floor, and I never knew I was supposed to in the first place, that I'm not supposed to say anything? Love bears all things. Believes all things. This is getting worse. I'm supposed to believe all things. Hopes all things. Endures all things. You see, this is a little bit before we get to the Reformation, because we're going to find people who did all of this. just so they could read a Bible in their own language. And even though they went through all of this, they still cut off their heads. They still burned them. They still did things to them we can't talk about on the torture rack. And while they were going through all that, they were still believing all things, enduring all things, hoping all things. You don't know how many of those people went to the stake when they were burning. Everybody outside there was crying. People, not everybody, but many other people that are crying for these people. They weren't crying, the people burning. They were smiling, saying, "Today's my marriage day." Yeah. Oh, they hurt, but they didn't care about the hurt. I said, "I'm going to see Jesus. This is my entrance." Love not only bears with others' faults, but cheerfully submits. Cheerfully submits to whatever suffering or consequences are involved. Yeah. You see, we're good theologians. We need to take the next step now. Yeah, we need to take the next step. These are the things they didn't tell us when we were baptized. I guess you can't tell everybody everything, but they should have told us some of it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. A person should know what they're getting into. Right. Right. Yeah. That's one thing that's always made me marvel about the Church of Smyrna, the second church. That was the church of the age of persecution. You remember? The Roman emperors decided they're going to kill all the Christians. And they were doing a good job. And I have often wondered, what kind of people were those that joined a church where you knew the next thing was you're going to be arrested and they're going to take you to the Colosseum? Why join a church like that? Because they weren't going to play games with you over there. They had some hungry dogs. They had some hot griddles to throw you on. They had some lions that wanted to play. They had some chariots to chain you through to and drag you all over the place. Why join a church like that? I'm telling you, it's given me a lot of pause. I've had to do a lot of thinking about that. Yeah, we can join a church here and then sit in a pew every Sabbath. But what about them? It's because they met Jesus. It wasn't about a church. It was about Jesus. We're going to get back there. You know that? God's working it right now. It's happening all over the world. He's doing things. You know, last week a whole church, a Sunday-keeping church, all of them became Seventh-day Adventists all at the same time. Really? Now, I don't know how many of those are Christians, but it's a pretty good sign when they all come over, they all got something. I better move along here. This sentence in my computer is in green. When I have something in green, it's something I don't ever want to forget. I want to be able to see that instantly when I run across it. I want to know that's in me somewhere. That one is real. It's not faith. It's reality. Now, green is the faith color, you know. But let's read this statement carefully. Listen. The fact that we are under so great obligation to Christ places us under the most sacred obligation to those He died to redeem. Yeah. If we could only hold on to that every day, all through the day. I am under the most sacred obligation to everybody around me. Jesus redeemed them, and most of them don't know it. How can I continue to move around people like that and never give a clue that I'm any different than them? No, we don't have to give a sermon to everybody we meet. Not everybody's going to listen anyhow. But we need to see every one of them as somebody that Jesus died for. That's reality. And somehow we've got to try to make a connection. We are to manifest toward them the same sympathy, the same tender compassion and unselfish love which Christ has manifested to us. All right, we're ready for a good one now. Every now and then, we work our way up to something that's been there the whole time, and we know it, but we never thought about it in just that way. Let's see if we have one here. The disciples asked Jesus, Master, teach us how to pray. Okay? And so Jesus proceeded to teach them, and we have a model prayer, don't we? And we know that model prayer. We can recite it. But now let's think about that prayer for a moment. If you have ever said it, you have done what we're going to look at just now. Okay. Forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. Did we ever say that one? I think we all have said that, haven't we? Here comes the thought. A great blessing is here asked upon conditions. Did you know that's what you were doing when you said those words? You were saying something on condition. Here is the inspired statement. We ourselves state these conditions. We ask that the mercy of God towards us may be measured by the mercy which we extend to others. Do you know that's what you did? When you said, forgive me the way I forgive others, you told God to give me the kind of mercy I give to other people. We can't just be saying words. We've got to know they mean something. They go somewhere. And when you're talking to God, they're going to have results. They're going to do something. Did you know that's what you were saying to God? Don't give me any more mercy than I give to other people. Oh. Now, I don't know about you, but it makes me tremble to think about that. I don't want to be judged the way I look at other people. Oh, that's a terrible thing. Christ declares, this is the rule by which God is going to judge us. It is the rule. Now, how happy are we that we prayed that? Yeah, because He's going to answer it. We said it, He's going to do it. If you forgive men their trespasses, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you forgive not men these trespasses, neither will your Father forgive you your trespasses. Now that's the word of Jesus. He can't take it back. That's forever. That's eternal. It cannot be changed. So there's a little bit more to Christianity than said, I believe in Jesus.
Yes.
You know, Ellen White has a good way of putting pictures in front of us. And she puts one right here. I have to give it to you the way she says it. One of the most common sins, and one that is attended with the most pernicious results, is the indulgence of an unforgiving spirit. How many will cherish animosity or revenge and then bow before God and ask to be forgiven as they forgive? Surely they can have no true sense of the import of this prayer, or they would not dare to take it upon their lips. Oh. An unforgiving spirit is from the devil. And how many Seventh-day Adventists are there who pride themselves on being such great people? They would never sin, but they're sinning all the time. We need to slow down and think about some things, all of us. Because this is just a taste of where God's standard is. We are dependent upon the pardoning mercy of God every day, every hour. How then can we cherish bitterness and malice toward our fellow sinners? Yeah. There's the reality. He's just like me. Our fellow sinners. I'm just as lost as I think he is. Yeah. As a matter of fact, I'm like every other sinner. That's Christ Object Lessons 159, by the way. Lost and hopeless like every other sinner. That's what it says on that page. How dare we say to God, forgive me and have mercy on me the way I have on everybody else? Unless we know what we're saying and we're willing to take it. Yeah. And then this little sentence comes by after she does all of this. Of course, it's not Ellen White. It's Jesus telling her, this is what I want you to put in front of my people. This is me talking to them. This is the next thing Jesus says. God requires more of his followers than many realize. Oh, but I'm saved. Oh, really? If we would not build our hopes on a false foundation, we must do it the Bible way. That's what I tell every Mormon fellow that comes by. Yeah. The Bible. I will not listen to their Joseph Smith. And they don't know why. I tell them, let's do the Bible first. The Bible. I won't listen to anything else. As Seventh-day Adventists, we shouldn't listen to anything else. The Bible. The Bible. The Bible way. We have a lot of really sharp people in this church. Very intelligent. This church attracts logical minds. And we have a lot of people in leadership who are very, very clever. But that doesn't count. The Bible. Don't tell me anything but the Bible. Well, what about the Bible? What about the spirit of prophecy? Do we pay attention to either one as a people? Really? There are a lot of people trying. I know that. There are a lot of genuine Seventh-day Adventists in the Seventh-day Adventist church, but not near the millions of people who profess to be Seventh-day Adventists. I mean, this is God's church. He's got to have His church in the midst of the organization someplace. He has people. But those people are never satisfied. They're always moving. They want to know more. They want to have a bigger experience. They want to see Jesus and hear Him better. It's a constant, ongoing thing. When we read the Bible, is it for a Sabbath school lesson? No. Or is it to hear the voice of God talking to me? Do I want to hear Him? Well, that's one of the quickest ways you can do it, is open the Bible, read, and hear His voice. He's talking to you. Those aren't just words. It's God talking to you. Now, it took me a long time to realize that people can read the Bible and the Spirit of Prophecy and still not get anything out of it. And I had to figure out why. How does that work? Well, the answer finally came to me. Many people don't believe those words are really going to stick. And it doesn't mean them. See? Ellen White had that problem with lots of people. Oh, it doesn't mean me. She would write a testimony to a person. And you know, she stopped giving it to them. She would give it to somebody else with the instructions, read this to that person. What are you going to do when somebody's reading your testimony to you? You have to hear every word. She says if we don't do that, they're going to skip the parts they don't like. And that's exactly what John Harvey Kellogg did. She would write a testimony to him, and he would read the parts that were okay with him. The parts he didn't think meant him, just go right by those. And he wasn't the only one, so she stopped doing it. She would give a testimony and say, you read it to them. That way they can't do that. God means what He says. He's not going to take it back. We don't have to read it 15 times to see if it's going to change. It's going to always be the same. We have never talked about the health reform here. There are several things we have not talked about here. Dress reform, amusements, entertainment. I mean, there's just lots of things we have not really made an issue of here. We're trying to get to the basic principles. But you have heard me say a couple things just in passing. Cheese is not fit for human consumption. I said that about 4 times here so far. Well, do you know why I'm saying that? Because that's exactly what it says in the Spirit of Prophecy. Cheese is not fit for human consumption. It should never be fed to children. If an adult wants to eat it with full knowledge what they're doing to themselves, that's their choice. But when a church has a pizza party, that's a whole church sinning. And who's saying anything? Well, you won't say anything until you read it in the Spirit of Prophecy. That's what it said. I'm not going to do it, and I'm not going to be around someplace where it's done. That's just one tiny little thing that I've said a few times, okay? But who are we as a people? Does God mean what he says? Can we violate God and think we're going to heaven? What kind of nonsense is that? I told a pastor recently he was having a rummage sale. I wrote down 3 pages of Spirit Prophecy quotes for him. God's people don't do these kinds of things. Right. When you raise church money, appealing to carnal appetite, which is what a rummage sale is, odds and ends for cheap. God's curse is on that money. Right. Yeah, I gave him the page where she says that. God's curse. They had the rummage sale anyhow. I have another series of quotations. When God has revealed his will to us, how can we go against that will and call ourselves Christians? Yeah. Are we hoping God's going to change what he said? Are we hoping he's going to change his mind? He's going to relax it and say, well, it's okay. I'm covered by grace. Jesus died for me. It's okay. Somebody's not getting the message, the real one. This is 5T. This is in the middle of the books. There are a lot of other things on both sides. Yeah, we needed to get in there and dig. And don't skip anything. Every sentence, every page. The Spirit of Christ will lead us to hate sin, while we are willing to make any sacrifice to save the sinner. Yeah, you can hate sin in somebody else and you can hate sin in yourself, but we love the sinner. We have to keep that separate. We love the people, not the things they do. The apostle admonishes his brethren in the name and by the authority of Jesus Christ that after having professed the gospel, they should not conduct themselves as did the Gentiles, but should show by their daily deportment that they have been truly converted. There's a movement beginning to develop that I can sense in the church right now. I think it's a good movement. It's a good idea. But there's a trap waiting. It's called revival and reformation. Now that's the first thing we should be concerned about, is revival and reformation. Selected Messages, Volume 1. But there is a trap hiding in that. Some people want to be revived first, and then they'll reform later. No. You have to reform, then get revived. What does reform mean? I'm going to change the way I live. Or I'm not going to do what I've always been doing. This is another me, a new me, the born again me. Revival and reformation. But there's another trap. And it took me a while to see this one. You cannot revive people who have never been converted. And we have those all over the place in our midst. People who have never been converted. You cannot revive them. You have to get them converted. And if they are truly converted, they are to be rebaptized. Now, do you see what a problem we have as a people? How do you tell half of the congregation you need to be converted and they will rebaptize you? Think about that. But I'm in church every week. Yeah. We're biting off a big one with this one, revival and reformation. It's another counterfeit coming if we don't watch it. What we need is conversion and rebaptism. That's in the books. She says it over and over again. Conversion, rebaptism. When we get into the Reformation, we're going to see that one was one of the biggest controversies there was, that a Christian should never be rebaptized. Yeah, we'll run into it. All right, continuing. There must be decided change in their life and character. The accession of members who have not been renewed in heart and reformed in life is a source of weakness to the church. You see, I didn't make it up. Ellen White says we have members in the church who were never converted. They never reformed, and they're weakening the church. Some ministers, should I get this on tape? It says some ministers, I'm reading the book. Some ministers and churches are so desirous of securing an increase of numbers that they do not bear faithful testimony against unchristian habits and practices. Now this is Jesus talking. I'm not making up any words. I'm reading what's in these books, and you can go home and read the same words. This is a hard section. Those who accept the truth are not taught that they cannot safely be worldlings in conduct while they're Christians in name. Heretofore, they were Satan's subjects. Henceforth, they are to be subjects of Christ. The life must testify to the change of leaders. Public opinion favors a profession of Christianity. Little self-denial or self-sacrifice is required in order to put on the form of godliness without the power of God, and to have one's name enrolled upon the church book. Hence, many join the church without first becoming joined to Christ. In this, Satan triumphs. Such converts are his most efficient agents. They serve as decoys to other souls. They are false lights. Then I'm going to skip down now. If we would enter into life, we must follow the same path which Jesus and his disciples trod, the path of humility, self-denial, and sacrifice. Have we accepted the privileges so dearly purchased? Are we followers of God as dear children? Or are we servants of the Prince of Darkness? Are we worshipers of Jehovah or of Baal? Of the living God or of idols. You see, the person who is not a worshiper of Jehovah, his way, is an idol worshiper. That's the only other choice. And that doesn't mean we have to carve wooden things out and bow down to them. Anything that we take besides God, that's an idol. We may talk more about that sometime. If we are following Christ, his merits imputed to us come up before the Father as a sweet odor, and the graces of our Savior's character implanted in our hearts will shed around us a precious fragrance. The spirit of love, meekness, and forbearance pervading our life will have power to soften and subdue hard hearts and to win to Christ bitter opposers of the faith. That's really encouraging, isn't it? The people who are the hardest ones to deal with, they can be melted, they can be subdued, but it doesn't come by arguing with them. It doesn't come by showing them how wrong they are. It's by showing them how Jesus does things and who he is. All right, maybe we can get this done here if I skip a few things. The soul that is constantly looking unto Jesus will see. Now you tell me, what does a person who's looking to Jesus all the time, what do they see? They say they're looking at him. What do they see? You know, you can't look without seeing. There are people who try to say looking and seeing are two different things. No, they happen at the same time. You see, you look, you see. When you look at Jesus, what do you see? You see his self-denying love and deep humility. That's all you can see, because that's him. Self-denying love, deep humility, and they will copy his example. Isn't that what happened to John? There's a whole chapter about this in Acts of the Apostles. Yeah. Who was John? You remember who John was? He was a son of thunder, wasn't he? Well, he had that name for a reason. He was tough. He was fast to criticize, to judge. He was fast to get mad. And then after he cooled off, he wanted revenge. Yeah. He was a bad boy. That was John, the beloved disciple. But that was John before. Yeah, he's the one that stood closest to Jesus. He had his head on his chest. He watched him. He noticed how he did things, and he couldn't believe it. He said, he's so different from anything I know. The majesty of the heavens. And he's so quiet and so meek and patient. The power of God. But he just waits for people. And they have free choice. And it just hit him so hard. That's all he wanted to be like. That's all he could think about. I want to be like that. And that's what he did. He became like that. More than any of the other disciples, he became like Jesus. So what do we see when we see Jesus? We better start seeing the right thing. Yeah, let's see. The real Jesus. The self-denying Jesus. That's who he is. No self-indulgence in that life. He lives for others. Always. As God. That's not the kind of God most people want, you know. All right, here's one sentence. I have a red mark in front of it. I have red marks for things. Oh, don't ever do this one. Don't ever do this. And then, okay, here it comes. To spare any sin is to cherish a foe that only awaits an unguarded moment to cause our ruin. Yeah. Now that's serious. Oh, someday I'll overcome this. It's no big deal. No, it is a big deal. What we don't overcome is going to overcome us. That's the way it works. Yeah, it's a struggle. Sometimes it's a terrible fight. It can throw us into agony. But we've got to do it. Do you know that any sin we have a problem with, it's never going to go away until we make a determined effort so that Jesus, helping us, gives us victory. But without a determined effort, it's never going to happen. We have to make an effort as though our entire salvation was based on it, and that only. Salvation is a gift from God, yes. But that gift can go away if we don't understand how important it is to put everything into this. We have, all of us, been turned in the wrong direction by this thing called righteousness by faith. Somebody tried to teach us, well, all you have to have is faith. You don't need anything else. No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, that's not the truth. That kind of faith is not in the Bible. The faith in the Bible always takes you to righteousness. Righteousness. That means right doing. All right, we're getting to the end of it here. I want to get to the way she closes this. When the right way is so plainly marked out, why do not the professed people of God walk in it? Why do they not study and pray and labor earnestly to be of one mind? Why do they not seek to cherish compassion for one another, to love his brethren instead of rendering, evil for evil and railing for railing? Who does not love life and desire good days? Yet how few comply with the conditions. How few did she say that? How few comply with the conditions. To refrain the tongue from evil. Oh, now we got into something else here. And the lips from speaking guile. The word guile, by the way, means impurity. Impurity. There's more than one kind of impurity, you know. Impurity always destroys your thoughts because now you have impure thoughts. Impure thoughts lead to disobedience and sin. There's a process here, and it all begins with impure thoughts. Few are willing to follow the Savior's example of meekness and humility. Many ask the Lord to humble them, but are unwilling to submit to the discipline. When the test comes, a test. When trials come, or even annoyances, the heart rebels and the tongue utters words that are poisoned arrows or blasting hail. Oh, I need to be delivered from that. Words. Yeah, I know all these things. But I know that under the right circumstances, the right something will come out that I know instantly. Oh, I shouldn't have said that. Oh, the attitude isn't right. How can I think I'm showing Jesus with that? Yeah. And then there's the other side, evil speaking. You know, this is why you should never get into politics, because that's what they teach you, is how to do evil speaking. We're getting the papers right now. The elections are coming up. And most of these papers, the only thing they say is, what's wrong with the other guy? They never say what I'm going to do. Right. They're just saying evil all the time. Now, how could anybody vote for a person who all they know how to use is evil? Right. Mm-hmm. We can't do it. Mm-hmm. Evil speaking is a twofold curse, falling more heavily upon the speaker than upon the hearer. Yeah, who's paying the price of evil speaking? He who scatters the seeds of dissension and strife reaps in his own soul the deadly fruits. How miserable is the talebearer, the surmiser of evil. He is a stranger to true happiness. This is why I keep warning you about tapes and DVDs and things. You be careful what you're putting in front of yourself. You be careful what you hear, what you think is truth coming at you. Because if it doesn't make you love the brethren, the devil is doing something to you. Yeah. When you start saying, oh, they're no good, watch out. You have just become an accuser of the brethren. The devil. It's so easy to do. I've been there. I've talked to the people who teach these things. Yeah, I've been right there. If our brethren and sisters would become missionaries for God, visiting the sick and afflicted, laboring patiently, kindly for the erring. In short, if they would copy the pattern, the church would have prosperity in all her borders. Later on, she says, if we allow guile to come into our experience. By the way, doesn't it say there's no guile in the 144,000? No, none. It's not there. If guile is in the heart, they're not one of them. Guile is impurity of thinking. And she says here, if that becomes a cherished thing that we do, the soul is corrupted, it's contaminated, and it's compromised. Yeah. We can't think something bad about somebody down the street and be okay. We can't call some person coming down the freeway in the wrong lane coming right at you. You can't look at him and call him a fool. Get out of his way. Yeah, we're supposed to be somebody else. By the way, I had that happen to me leaving one of these meetings. Person coming down my side of the road right at me. All you can do is go as far as you can without leaving the road. Thank you, Lord. Keep going. Every emotion and desire must be held in subjection to reason and conscience. Every unholy thought must be instantly repelled. To your closet, followers of Christ. Pray in faith and with all the heart. That's what we need. To your closet. Pray with all your heart. By faith and prayer, all may meet the requirements of the gospel. No man can be forced to transgress. Did you hear that? Jesus just told us, no man can be forced to transgress. Oh, I had to. No, you didn't. Oh, I couldn't help it. Yes, you could. The devil may know he didn't. Hey, what are all these excuses? Do you know when we stand in front of Jesus and he asks us, why did you sin? How much are we going to say? Not a single little breath is going to come out of, because we're going to know I can't lie to him to his face. He's not going to listen to any of my excuses. Not one of them. Okay, I'll get to this. I'll have to cover that. No man can be forced to transgress. I'm going to read the next sentence. You get in your books and you study this carefully and you believe it. You get it inside and say, well, there it is. What can I say? Here it comes. His own consent must be first gained. The soul must purpose the sinful act before passion can dominate over reason or iniquity triumph over conscience. Temptation, however strong, is never an excuse for sin. Now that's righteousness through faith in Jesus. Righteousness. Somebody's trying to change the gospel on us, and you know it's working. It's in our books. Not Ellen White's words. It's the words they put on top of her words. I can show it to you 89 times. Cry unto the Lord, tempted soul. The Lord will hear. He knows how strong are the inclinations of the natural heart, and he will help in every time of temptation. Every. We have a unique opportunity here as this group. These things pile up on you after a while, and you begin to see, you know, it never changes. This is what God says. That's what it is. Yeah. We need to live this way. This is Christian living. Don't worry about what anybody else thinks or says. Just do what God says. There is nothing else that's safe on this earth. Nothing else. Okay, what does this say? Is Ellen White writing us? We should vote? No, she doesn't say we should vote. There's two things about this. Let's leave this for now. We're off the tape now. Let me shut this down. There are two things about voting. One is people. That's first. We are not to vote for people. Period. Because we don't know who they are. Right. We don't know what they're going to do. They don't know what they're going to do. Yeah. There are people who are very sincere when they first get into their big offices. And as soon as they get there, they find out there's a machine operating here that I can't change. You either do it this way or you're gone. Yeah. Compromise, that's the word. Now, I'm sure there are a lot of decent people who started out well, but it just eats them alive. They don't know what to do about it.